I posted on social media about Bigfoot in Texas. I wasn't expecting much, but what I got back in an email was hard to believe. It wasn't long, it wasn't dramatic. It just gave me a location, Joe's Camp, deep in East Texas woods. So I went, and what I saw blew my mind. Tonight I want to take you back into the first trip. I'm going to answer the questions I get asked the most about Joe's Camp and about the night that changed everything. Number 1, what did you see that first night? Number 2, what was your first impression of Joe? Number 3, what happened when you went into the bamboo forest on Joe's property? Number 4, tell us about the tree structures. Number 5, what happened when you walked up the pass, the hiking pass? Number 6, tell us about the noon tree knocks. Number 7, at any point did you feel like you were being watched? Number 8, did you hear anything you couldn't explain? Number 9, was there a moment where you went from curious to convinced something was out there? Number 10, how did the night at Joe's Camp change your path? Interesting. Okay. So bonus question. Did anything follow you back to camp? Okay. Number 2, did Joe ever seem afraid? Number 3, what did you not expect to happen? Number 4, did you sleep that night? Number 5, would you go alone now? Number 6, what would you tell skeptics about the first night? And number 7, why Joe's property is special. All right. So let's go back to number 1, and then we'll get into those 7 bonus questions. So the first question was, what did you see that first night? Well, when I first arrived, I got there, and this kind of answers the other questions, a few of the other questions. But so I got there, and Joe was a little bit hyper. He was very excited to see me. We had talked over the phone a few times, and the stuff that he told me, it was like, there's no way. He's either really knowledgeable of Bigfoot activity. He told me about tree knocks. He told me about screams. He told me about howls. He told me about seeing Bigfoots daytime, nighttime. Then walk out of the forest and stand there and watch him as he was working or whatever. He basically carried a gun, a big, very large gun, and was terrified of these Bigfoots. Didn't know much about them. And so let me get back into that question. What did you see that first night? Well, when I arrived, it was definitely out in the middle of nowhere. It was very dark, and I got there probably about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and he had me park in a specific place, and I took a look around. He had, I think he had 3 mobile homes on the property. One he was using for storage. One was basically being used by a friend who was staying on the camp with him. And then his little, basically his little cabin in the woods, if you will, his little mobile home that he turned kind of into a cabin. Joe, to me, looked like a mountain man, and he truly was. He was very dirty, and he was disheveled. His beard was not trimmed. He looked a little crazy. I was a little bit like, okay, what have I gotten myself into when I got there? But he was really cool, and he and I had a good conversation, and he had a lot of questions, and so I had to kind of talk him down. He was very, very afraid of what was going on, didn't understand it at all, didn't know anything about Bigfoot, to my surprise, even though he described like a Bigfoot paradise. I mean, literally, imagine walking into Bigfoot's living room. Tree structures, tree knocks, howls, screams, seeing Bigfoot almost daily. Having them walk out right across, right in front of you, right on his property, having rocks, sticks, and stones and stuff thrown at his trailer. Have him, basically peeking in through the windows, essentially scaring the living bejesus out of him, by the way. And I think I'd be scared too if something looked through my window. I mean, just imagine a giant watermelon for a head. I mean, I've talked about my Bigfoot experience, but there was one out there that was bigger than the one I saw. And imagine that big, huge head looking down through your window to the point where he was so scared he had blacked out the windows from the inside because he didn't want to see him at night. He wanted to be left alone. His dogs would freak out and bark and scream, and he didn't understand what that was. Hunter, he's a hunter, basically was living off the land and stuff like that. Very minimal location. He did have running water and power, but man, when it got dark, I mean, it was pitch black. I mean, you literally could not see your hand in front of your face. In fact, he made sure when it first got dark, he left the lights off. And I'm like, how the hell do you see anything out here? And he said, okay, well, watch. Let me flip the lights on. And so Joe's property is like a football field, essentially, 55 acres. And his family has owned it since pre-Civil War. I guess he got out of the military and didn't know what to do with himself, so he came back here to Texas and was looking for a job. What the hell? Okay, y'all just witnessed that, right? The light on the fish tank just turned on by itself. They're like, no, this looks better with the light on. Okay. Anyways, so talking about paranormal activity. It's on the timer, guys. It was off, as you saw in the beginning of the video. It just turned on by itself. I didn't hear any noise come from over there. Anyways, so essentially, I think we were both pretty uneasy. The atmosphere was thick and heavy, just because it was my first time up there, and I felt pretty vulnerable. I was not carrying any kind of a personal protection item on me. He was. I didn't know him, and I didn't know what he was going to do. He seemed kind of erratic, and so he gave me a tour of his property. We hopped on basically one of his RVs. I'm sorry, not RVs, one of his four-wheelers, and he took me around the property and showed me around, and my jaw just dropped. And I'll get into that in a minute, and I'll explain that. Basically, the trees were beautiful. The trees were probably about 1.5 feet, 2 feet around. A lot of pine trees, amongst other things up there. But they literally came right down to where his property was. And so the front, I don't know, 30 yards or whatever, maybe less, was his area. That was his area where he kind of carved out around the trees, where he cut some trees down and stuff like that, made an area for himself on some flat land above because the area flooded. And then the rest of it was just basically wild forest. You felt like you were in the forest. So getting back into what I thought about Joe, number 2, what was your impression of Joe? He seemed, like I said, very erratic, very hyper, very intense, definitely not calm, but he was very credible. You listen to his stories and you're like, this guy just seems so real. He seemed like he was just very terrified of what was going on around him. And his parents had warned him, don't take this property. They told him when he moved on to the property, 20 years ago. Unfortunately, Joe's no longer with us. She probably shouldn't take it. Just, leave the property alone. But he's like, no, I'm going to take it. And so a lot of things had happened to scare him. I guess one of the very first things that happened to him is he and a friend basically started to come onto the property, and it was so overgrown they basically had to cut their way in with a chainsaw and a hatchet and a machete. They carved a path kind of up and through the first, where the gate was, about 20 feet in, and they only cleared about the first 20 feet, enough to get a car in. and enough of space for a tent. So they put a tent up for the night and stayed. Well, that night, all hell broke loose. He found out Bigfoot was real. Worse than I did. They were sleeping and they were hearing tree knocks and the whoops, and they were hearing the screams and howls and having rocks thrown at their tent. And something kept pushing their tent in and scared the hell out of them. So the next day, I don't think they were carrying any personal protection items at that point. The next day, when they got up, the friend that was helping him clear the area just took off. And so he only worked on there during the day until he finally got enough cleared to get up to the where he is now. He was then when I got there. But yeah, he was. He definitely wasn't chasing fame. He wasn't interested in any kind of fame or anything like that. He'd been living there for about 18 years at this time, maybe about 17 years at this time. And he was just kind of dealing with it. He didn't know how to deal with it, and he was just fed up, and he just wanted answers. So, okay, let's talk about what happened when we went into the bamboo forest. So as the night went on, it was really hot and muggy. I mean, it was probably 100 degrees. I went up there during the middle of summer, bad time to go. We were both just dripping. If you've ever been to Louisiana, it's on the Texas-Louisiana borders where he lived. And the temperature was just sweaty and gross. It was insane. And of course, it's pitch black. Now I'm up there with my little Sony Handycam, right? And I've got the little viewfinder open, the little 1x1 viewfinder, 1 inch by 1 inch viewfinder, or maybe 1.5 by 1 inch viewfinder. And that's all we've got, with a bunch of little tiny IR lights that can barely see, 5-10 feet ahead of us. And so we're just watching and listening. And he said, well, we need to start in the bamboo forest over here on the left side of my property. Again, that's right behind his house where he had a lot of experiences. So I'm like, okay, we'll start here. So as Joe's, let me give you a layout of Joe's property. Basically, you would think that this property would be like hard dirt and stuff like that. No, this forest was so old that basically it had sand. If you dug down about through all of the mulch and everything that was on the ground, all the deadfall, about 3 or 4 inches, you get to sand. In some places it was dirt, but mainly it was sand over where his bamboo forest was. And so when he first moved in, a friend of his, about 3 years in, they basically gave him a bunch of bamboo seeds and said, hey, good luck. Go ahead and go plant these, and you can use it for, here comes the cat. You can use this to essentially, create privacy, use it for wood, use it for making fences and all kinds of stuff like that. And you can sell it and make some good profit. So he's like, oh, that's a great idea. So he planted a bamboo forest on this left side of his property. And this bamboo forest is probably about, I don't know, maybe an acre of his property, the front left half of his property. Anyways, so as we're walking through, we're not hearing anything. It's quiet. But of course, Texas, you got the cicadas squeaking away, and then of course the normal sounds of the animals. Because you're in the middle of the forest, there's every animal known to man out there. There's deer, raccoons, possums, foxes, coyotes, and other things. Imagine a forest having. Anyways, so we're walking through, and I'm trying to see around. I can't really see much, but I can hear something moving. And I just hear this crunch, crunch, crunch. And I'm like, okay, and I asked Joe, is that a deer? What is that? And he's like, no, that doesn't sound like a deer. They don't make that much noise. But it sounded pretty loud. It's like crunch, 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 crunch. Like something was stepping literally on the broken deadfall. And when you walked on that stuff, it made pretty loud noise. You can't sneak up on anything up there. I mean, it's so loud. It's like stepping on chips. Imagine like Doritos on the ground, and you step on one, it goes. pretty much that's the same sound. So essentially, all of a sudden we just start feeling where like there's something different. The atmosphere just changed. We'd got about 20 feet into this forest, right? This part of the forest on the left side of his property. And there's a road that runs down this. His property is basically in between two logging roads. In fact, I think there's two logging roads that ran up the middle of his property, but only one of them basically survived, and that's his driveway now, or was his driveway. So as we're walking into this forest, we hear some crunching. Okay, that's very strange. And we definitely heard movement. I think I heard a tree branch snap. I'm like, okay, and that's strange. And so I'm looking at him, he's looking at me, and he's like right behind me. We're right next to each other. And I've got the handy cam, and I think I had a machete in my hand because I didn't know what I was to deal, what I was going to be dealing with. I didn't know if I'd have to chop my way through, but we were able to find some holes through the middle of the trees and stuff like that. They weren't like right on top of each other. It wasn't super thick. It had been thinned out. There was a lot of game trails over there. So as I'm walking through and I'm looking down, all of a sudden I look down and I just see movement to my left. And it's not pitch black. There's a little bit of a moon at this point. The moon had come up. So you can kind of see the light through the trees. And you can see silhouettes. And I see silhouettes moving to my left. I'm like, what is that? And you can hear just a commotion. All of a sudden you hear, tree branches snapping and all this stuff. And I look down, and we're in the bamboo forest. In the bamboo forest, he planted those plants a certain distance apart. I think they were 2 or 3 feet apart each way, so they had room. The stalks had room to grow up. Sorry about the cat. But anyways, I'm looking down, and as I told you, there was it was sandy soil, and I'm looking at it, and it almost looked like giant bathtubs in between the bamboo. It looked like somebody had dug out like a very long, maybe a 10 or 12 foot long trench, and then about 3 or 4 feet wide. And there was a whole bunch of them. There must have been 15 or 20 of them. And I'm looking at these trenches, and I'm going, "What is this normal?" They were just kind of like bathtubs, giant bathtubs in the ground, if you will. But they weren't like attached. They were just separate. And I'm looking at him going, okay, have you seen this before, Joe? And he's like, no, I've never seen this before. So I'm looking down at that, and to my right, I hear a guttural growl. Excuse me, I can't speak. And I'm like, what the hell was that? So I start walking towards it, trying to figure out what it is. And again, I have the little viewfinder open. And I had no idea that I almost walked right into like the belly of a freaking Bigfoot, right? This thing was standing there. It must have been, it must have been 6 or 7 feet in front of us. And I hear a noise to my left. I'm pretty sure that was the Bigfoots. I saw a bunch of what looks like giant dogs or bears basically running out on all fours. Now, I'd seen Bigfoots do the bear crawl before, and I'm like, holy crap, that's a bunch of Bigfoots, all different shapes and sizes, scurrying out of the forest over on top of the road, right? They're just like, boom, out, gone. And so as I'm watching that, I heard that growl. I turned to the right and literally almost walked into this thing. I had no idea until I went back and looked at it. There's it's not even a second. And the only way I know it is I had to go through it by frame. I pan to the right because I hear something to my right, and then I hear the growl, and I pan back to the left, and the camera's literally like an inch from this thing's stomach. All you see is this hair, right? And so I'm like, holy crap, this thing, I literally panned to the right and then panned to the left. I went so fast that you can't even see it. I wouldn't even have known it was there unless I wasn't paying attention. And I'm like, holy crap. So, we kind of followed them out to the road after that. And, I don't know exactly what happened after that. I can't exactly remember what happened, but we went back to his place and we sat down and talked for a little bit. And we, of course, set up more investigations. If you guys have never seen the documentary we made we made 2 documentaries of Joe's camp. The first one, basically, unfortunately, like I've talked about before, I've talked about Joe's camp many times. If we had the camera gear we have now, you guys would have seen some amazing crap, some amazing stuff. I mean, Bigfoot caught on camera, caught on thermal. We caught eye shine for sure and stuff like that. Huge eyes just opening up out of nowhere, them looking around the trees and stuff. But anyways, so okay, let me tell you guys about the tree structures. So when I went onto his property and he started showing me around, he's like, "Yeah, we got to go to the back of the property." And so, okay, I'm like, okay, we're on this 4-wheel. We're going to go back there and we're looking, and I find a huge footprint in the sand, right? And I went to try and take, of course, I got a picture of it. I don't remember if it's on the documentary or not. But I'm looking at it, I'm going, what the hell? That's crazy. And so I'm like, damn. And this thing was, the heel, God bless, was like 6 inches wide. I mean, way wider than my heel. And then basically you could see where the foot had kind of cupped down and then the toes had pressed off. What had happened was the ground kind of gave way as it stepped there with its heel. It gave way, left a really good mark. And then basically where I'd pressed off with its toes. And I'm like, holy crap. And then he goes, Matt. I'm like, what? He's like, look to your left. And I looked over. I'm like, holy crap. I mean, I've never seen so many trees literally bent each way. I mean, in hoops, bent over this way, bent over that way, bent over that way, bent over this way. And they all basically were going in different directions. It wasn't like the trees had grown that way. They had been pulled under. I started walking out there. There was thousands of them. Small, big, some were just babies like vines. Some were, trees that were probably 6, 7, 8 feet tall. Some of them were, I'd have to say, maybe 20 feet tall. You could see where old ones had been bent and, without being broken, just bent over and left. And so I was like, holy crap. Some of them were used, some of them had vines that basically were holding them in place. Essentially, the top of the tree had been bent down and a vine was used to wrap around it. Some of them had been hooked onto other branches. Some of them were just pushed into the ground, like the top of the tree was pushed into the ground, and stuff like that. It was just crazy. No fresh breaks. They were not old. They were still growing green. Could wind have done it? No. I don't think the wind would have done this because some were to the left, some were to the right, some were forward, some were back, and they were all like different directions. And as I looked at it, I'm like, holy crap. If you look the way they bent them, basically they're like one in front of another, kind of like staggered in front of each other. And as you looked at it, you're like, holy crap. Somebody could be squatted down back there and you would never see them. They basically created blinds out of these things. For my skeptics, I wish I could take you out there and show you. I mean, there's just no way to anymore. You guys can watch the video and make up your own minds for the skeptics that are listening. I'm sorry at this point. I normally have a devil's advocate for you guys, but I don't have one for this. I could not understand why these were doing that. So years later, we went back there probably once a month, doing the documentary and stuff like that for probably almost 2.5 years. When we walked up through the pass, basically Joe had created pass. He had cut down trees, and he had cleared areas where he could basically take his 4-wheeler through, right? So it's not like it's a small walking path, and there's multiple. Okay, so when we walked in the woods through these walking paths, essentially there was, openings between trees. There was opening between bushes. You could literally walk up through the mulch and stuff like that, and the deadfall, the pine leaves and all that stuff. And it was open. You could get through there pretty easily. There was dead, basically tree trunks on the ground and sticks and whatever else. And there was a lot of vines Um, God, the forest loved to grab you. Talking about the forest coming alive, trying to get you. Um, it seems like that was Joe's camp. Everywhere you try to walk, it seemed like the forest basically was trying to grab you. Anyways, always had to wear long pants out there, whether it was 100 degrees and 100% humidity or whatever. Um, so someone's asking, did the woods go quiet? And this is not being recorded live, guys. This is just questions people have sent me. Sometimes you'd be walking up there and you'd be kind of just hanging out and looking around, and all of a sudden, yes, the woods would go quiet. It would just be dead silent. No cicadas, no animals, no nothing. And you're looking at the person with you. Oh, dude. And you're looking at the person with you and you're going, why is it so quiet out here? And essentially, the person with you is going, I don't know. And you're looking around, you're like, okay, why and what's going on? And it's just eerie. It gets really eerie, especially even during the day. When it happens at night and it's pitch black all around, you can't see anything. You're like at the mercy of Bigfoot at that point. And crazy. Did you hear something parallel you? No, that's the crazy thing. We didn't hear footsteps. We didn't hear anything. And you'd be walking up through these paths. Like one day we found a deer outside of Joe's trailer that we were staying in for the night. It was a fresh kill. It smelled disgusting. No legs, everything but the eyeballs and some of the ribs and stuff. Meat was left. Just basically the backbone and stuff in the head. And this basically, an hour later, we had to go get supplies. We came back and it disappeared. And we're like, Joe, did you move this? He's like, what? He didn't even know about it. He's like, no. And so we're like, okay, we started walking up the woods and we could smell it from, about 100 feet away. So we start winding our way up through the woods. And every time I turned around, I felt like there was something behind us. I just couldn't tell. I just couldn't see it. Kept looking back, nothing. And at this point, the nothing had been blocked. Right? Didn't hear footsteps. Didn't hear rock clacking. Didn't hear anything pacing. But I could feel like something was around us. I felt like we were being watched, and I'm sure we were. So we finally get up to the top of his property, right where that road is. If we walked at a diagonal angle, like a 45-degree angle towards the top of his property, which again is about 55 acres. So it's quite a walk. And we're looking around and we're like, oh God, what's it? Oh, there it is. There's the dead carcass that had been pulled under some trees and had a bunch of branches and stuff piled on top of it to, I don't know, basically keep the carcass from being stolen, I guess. And so like, okay, we documented it and you can see it on Joe's camp, the very first Joe's camp we did. And again, I apologize for the quality. That happened about 6 years ago. If we had better video cameras, we would have killed that. Anyways, I'll leave a link for Joe's camp in the description below. You guys go watch that. I mean, it's quite the video, even though the technology was really low at that point in time, unfortunately. We did have some really high-tech video cameras. We had night vision and stuff like that. We had thermal, but we never were able to get anything too high quality on that. We did get a lot on the video cameras, the little Sony Handycams. So walking back down, all of a sudden, everywhere we walk through, between two bushes, between two trees, literally there was something pulled across. Like the two bushes, there was a vine that was pulled across. And it was playful. And it's like, okay. I started laughing. I'm like, this is silly. So we walked down between the two trees, and a very large tree trunk had been pulled across that. Another crossing between two trees had some sticks leaning up from, not real tiny sticks, just twigs, essentially, that were about 4 or 5 feet tall, from leaning from one tree against the other, blocking the path. So we moved that, and I can't remember what else happened, but it was crazy. So let's talk about the noon tree knocks. Again, Joe lived up in this property for probably about 20 years. And on the 18th year, I came up there. This is probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I basically arrived about 11:30 or so, and he was out just behind his trailers, and he goes, "Shh." I'm like, "What?" Like, "Shh." He's giving me the shh sign, and I'm like, "Okay." And he looks at his watch. He goes, he points his finger up. I'm like, "Okay, what's going on?" And all of a sudden I hear, I'm like, "Was that Trina?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, hold on." I'm like, "What the hell is they're answering each other?" He's like, "Yeah." And then, and there was probably 3 or 4 more. And I'm like, "Damn it, I don't have my video camera with me." But the knocks were, they were all different areas. They kind of came from one side and went around to another side. Imagine they weren't actually on his property. Sorry, I got cat crossing here. But they were, Binks. Stop, stop, stop. So they were all different areas of his property. Probably a neighbor's property. It came from like the property behind him, property probably down a little bit, the forest that was down a little bit way the ways from him on the other side of the road. He also had the highway in front of his property, and then one came from over there, and then one came kind of from a diagonal angle across the way. There was 5 in total. But it seemed like they were just knocking and everything was responding to each other. So that was pretty cool. Joe was laughing at me. He's like, "Yep, this happens every day." I'm like, "Wow, okay." But it was midday. It was right around noon. So I thought that was pretty cool. We tried to time our investigations to get there by about 11:30 to try and document that after that. At any point, did you feel like you were being watched? God, I think we always felt like we were being watched. Especially when I was out there by myself, walking around. I know Christy had an experience, and I had an experience over his family graveyard. Oh my gosh, that was creepy. Holy moly, I've never felt more afraid for my life. But while I was having that experience, Christy was over in the other, the back of Joe's camp, and she was having her own experience, and I had no idea at that point. And I don't want to give away the Joe's Camp documentary. She was having her own experiences. Let me put it that way. She caught 3 clear whoops, and I'm pretty sure that's the females that do that. But she was freaking out, and I parked my truck, my Bronco, over on the path right next to his cemetery, his small little family cemetery. And just beyond that, there was a crossing through the trees, and then the power lines were there. So, of course, they were cleared. And then there was the area, the forest, where he said nobody ever goes up there. Nobody ever gets, and you can't go up there either. One day he tried to take me up there, and he's like, "No, we don't have permission to go up there." So it was his family's land, but they had been up there for 40, 50 years. And he said, "Nobody goes up there. Even if you're armed or whatever, you don't go up there." So I wish we would got a chance to get up there. But anyways, so I'm up there and I'm doing some tree knocks, and I can hear like crunching and, noises of something moving around me. And I'm pretty sure they wanted to make sure I knew that they knew that I was there. And I felt surrounded, and there was literally forest literally all around me. I was on the left side of his property where the road went up, and then just above where his property was, the cemetery up there was his uncle's property from what he told me. Anywho, I was parked up there, and Christy was telling me she wasn't feeling comfortable. I'm like, "No, just stay put, just hang loose. We're almost set up." We hadn't even gotten to starting investigating. I was in the process of setting up my tripod when I started to feel really uncomfortable. And I was like, "Okay, this does not feel good. It does not feel safe. I feel like they're, right in the trees behind me, literally 20, 30 feet behind me. They just felt like I felt like I was surrounded all the way around. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, I ended up getting back in my car. I mean, my hair was standing up. My was totally on alert. My instinct was telling me get the heck out of there. It wasn't safe. And as I'm trying to set up and I'm doing some tree knocks, I actually walked up to a tree, and that's when I felt like, oh, geez, nope. They came down. They came down to where we were, and I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I need to get out of here. And as I was trying to pick up my Sony Handycam, and I sat in the car, and because I felt like I'd put the car between me and the trees behind me, because I'm like, okay, I need some kind of a barrier here, just in case something comes flying down out of the woods at me, and they decide they're gonna, take me out or something. So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear this god awful howl. Oh my gosh. I can't remember if we got it on video or not, but it was like nothing I've ever heard. I've heard a few Bigfoot calls. This was insane, and it happened right where she was, right where Christy was. First, you hear the whoop 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 as whatever, and you can hear it kind of getting. You hear it once, and it's closer to the camera, and then the second time it's a little further from the camera, and the third time it's a little further from the camera. I'm pretty sure the dominant male and other males had come down to protect the females. I'm pretty sure Joe's camp was or is a female breeding ground where the females stay, and maybe the males are there during the day or whatever, but they basically leave. And oh my gosh, yeah, I couldn't get out of there fast enough. I couldn't get the tripod back in the car and get the rest of the gear I had sitting on the hood wrapped up quick enough. I was gone. We went back to the camp, and I know I'm ashamed of myself, but damn, I mean, that was scary as hell. Wow. Definitely heard a lot of things we couldn't explain. We definitely heard the whoops. We heard the house. There was a howl that went on for 5 minutes. And because Joe's family haunts that property, especially one of his uncles, he likes to mess with the cameras. And the cameras would turn off, turn on, turn off, turn on. It was kind of annoying. We're like, we need the cameras on so we can document what's going on around us. Camera batteries would just drain out of nowhere. Just gone. Done. Fresh battery right off the charger. It was just green. Put it on there. Boop. Gone. Nope. You can't do that. Made it very difficult to investigate. But he wasn't trying to. He just wanted his own attention, essentially. He wasn't trying to, cause a problem. He just wanted to essentially have his time in the and we gave it to him. We said, okay, come on over here, let's do a K2 session, and I don't remember if that's in the documentary or not, but we had a full conversation with him right in front of Joe, and Joe got to ask him a lot of questions and stuff like that. Definitely, like I said, we heard the whoops, we heard the howls, heard the tree knocks many times. A couple of times it happened like in the second documentary where I was over in the bamboo forest during the day by myself looking at all the damn bamboo tree structures. Imagine a bamboo 3-4 inches wide being snapped off and basically being, made into a teepee. That's basically what they did with that. And they made other weird, strange structures over there with that bamboo. I mean, I tried to take a piece that was like a half an inch wide. Bamboo is one of the toughest woods in the world. And imagine trying to snap that through your knee. Man, it left a nice bruise on my leg. Anyways, definitely heard things moving around. Definitely felt unnatural for sure. So we experienced a lot of stuff we could not explain at Joe's camp. Okay, so let's keep moving. Was there a moment you went from curious to convinced something was out there? Honestly, I think that happened pretty fast. I think that first night that I was there, I was like, oh my gosh, this is real. This is really happening. I mean, his property is like Bigfoot's living room. I mean, they're literally right here. And let's talk about how did that night change
How did that night at Joe's camp change your path? We weren't going to do Bigfoot research. We were just kind of interested in it, but weren't real sold on it. And, I left Black Star Canyon and behind where I had all the hauntings and all that stuff and the Bigfoot research I was doing. I was pretty devastated when we left. I was pretty much done with Bigfoot research at that point, and then having this happen, somebody's like, "You got to get back into this." And of course, we met Joe, and then Joe really reinvigorated us into this, and really excited us and got us going again, wanting to, at least for me, find out more. Took several different skeptics up there. Daytime, nighttime, they had sightings of Bigfoots walking out of the forest, literally walking right out of the forest, broad daylight, right in front of them, and going, "Oh my gosh," having that moment that I had. Holy crap, they're real. Unfortunately, basically, Joe became part of our family. He became part of the Deep Woods Paranormal family. Sorry, I missed Joe a lot. It basically changed our research direction. We went back to, okay, we're going to not just research ghosts anymore. Binks, what are you doing? We're going to continue to research Bigfoot and UFOs and other things. We're going to make this a full paranormal research and other cryptids, Dogman and other stuff like that. In fact, I think we found some Dogman prints at his camp back by the tree lines, and he is really hyper tonight. What kept us going back, just the opportunity to possibly get something on camera to document what we were seeing. And I love, he grew to absolutely love Bigfoot research. And he started researching himself. He became a Bigfoot believer and a Bigfoot researcher, and he became part of our team. And man, he led us to some cool locations up there. And so the more he got into it, the more we got into it, the more we kept going back, and the more documentation we were doing and stuff like that. And so yeah, it was just. The Bigfoots up there were just extremely, excuse me, the Bigfoots up there were just really, they were cool. They weren't trying to hurt you. I don't think they were trying to scare us. I think they were as curious about us as we were them. They could tell that we weren't there to hurt them. Joe put his gun away. I mean, he put his sidearm away and started really enjoying the experiences he had with them, and became more in tune with them, and went from being terrified of them to absolutely loving them. And it was just a great relationship all the way around. He would let us come up to his property and do the research, and he would be part of it if he wanted to be. He would bring us leads into new locations around where he lived, because he was in the middle of East Texas, and that's a real big hot spot, and all around where he lived. So did anything follow you back to camp? I'm pretty sure, whatever was there, paranormally, be it Bigfoot, ghosts, whatever, Dogman, they were already there. And again, I answered this question: did Joe ever seem afraid? Yes, he was terrified when we first got there. What did you not expect to happen? I didn't expect most of it to happen. I didn't expect to even experience anything Bigfoot-wise. I thought he was just somebody that went online and got a bunch of information, and I couldn't help myself. I drove 3 hours. It was like it was meant to be. I drove 3 hours to get up there, and it was insane. I mean, I think I drove home the night. I don't think I stayed on this property that particular night. We arranged to do that later on. But I did sleep that night real well because I was exhausted when I got home. Would I go alone now? Yes, I would go up there alone. I don't feel threatened by them at all. What would you tell skeptics about the first night? It's the same thing I tell you guys all the time. I have nothing but respect for everyone, especially skeptics. You do have to have a skeptical mind when you go into this field because everything can't be a Bigfoot or a ghost or a UFO or whatever paranormally. You have to have, you have to be able to say, nope, this is not paranormal, or you have to be able, I hate the word debunk. You have to be able to find alternative explanations for what's going on first. And if you're left with something, then you've got something. You need some kind of evidence. You need footprints. You need tree knocks. You need all this stuff. We never did find any hair samples. We looked. We spent hours and hours and hours. We had a police officer that was part of our group, and he went up there and looked around, trying to do forensics for us. We were looking for fingerprints because sometimes they would touch things. In fact, I have a rock that has a hair on it. Very hard to find any hairs out there for some reason. I don't know why. You'd think on the barbed wire fences or whatever around his property, we would have found something, but we never did. We have the rock that they threw, or there's the piece of hair possibly, and a few other pieces of evidence, but we were never able to get anything concrete besides footprints and the personal experiences that we had and the stuff that we caught on camera, of course. All the eye shine. Again, if you guys want to go watch our YouTube video of Joe's camp, there's two videos. There's the first one, and then if I can find the second one, I'll link it too. But why Joe's property specifically? It was just an amazing place. I really hope that the family, I know they were talking about selling it. I hope they didn't sell it. I really do. And I've tried to get a hold of them multiple times. If you are listening or watching and Joe's camp, Joe's family, I've been trying to get back in touch with them multiple times, but I've never heard back from them. I was supposed to go help them kind of clear up the land a little bit and stuff like that. But I would love the opportunity to get back up there and help them out in any way I can and start to do my Bigfoot research up there again, and maybe bring groups out there to have them experience what we did and see what's going on. Anyways, guys, this is getting a little long. So, tell us about your Bigfoot experiences down below. Have you ever experienced something Bigfoot wise or anything else paranormal? Feel free to comment down below. This should be a safe place for people to comment. Again, please be respectful of people's comments, guys. If you have a location in Texas that you would like us to come check out, please, again, send us an email or message us down below. I can send you my private email and you can contact us. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. And please click on that link to Joe's camp down below. And we will catch you guys on the next one.